After 5 days of searching, teams will not give up on a missing skier.
Western Montana schools take part in walkout protests against gun violence.
And the Big Fork Volunteer Fire Department needs a new mill levy to continue its service.
Powered by the Montana Television Network. This is the 10 o'clock news on KPAX, Montana's news leader.
Good evening, I'm Jill Valley.
And I'm Dennis Bragg. Students at Missoula High Schools walk out of class today to remember the 17 people killed at a Florida high school a week ago.
At noon today, students from Hellgate and Sentinel joined other high schools around the country in holding this walkout. It comes in response to last week's mass shooting in Broward County, Florida that killed 17 people. Students gathered on both sides of the Higgins Avenue Bridge holding signs and chanting for gun control. The purpose is twofold: to protest gun violence and to show support for the victims of last week's shooting. Students say they're frustrated with the lack of action regarding gun control, and it's time their voices are heard.
It's a stand of solidarity with Florida and saying that they're not alone and that we want to see change too. There's not just them alone in this fight, and that students are working together.
We're the next generation coming into the world, and the importance of us doing this is to show students all over the country, really, that we have a voice.
Big Sky High School students also staged a walkout in solidarity. They moved down the street to C.S. Porter Middle School, where they held signs on Reserve Street. Big Sky students told us they believe the walkout could bring awareness to their displeasure with school safety and open a dialogue to help fix the problem.
I think kids shouldn't have to come to school scared, and that is that should be somebody's #1 priority, is to make sure the kids of our schools aren't scared, because that should be the last place they should be scared.
And talk about what the real issues are, not being one-sided on things. Talk to all types of people, right-wing, left-wing, Democrat, Republican, everybody. Talk to them about their views and find a middle ground that we can all agree on and work on it together, because we're stronger together as a team.
Students involved in the walkout later met at Caris Park in Missoula. Now, Missoula County Public School Superintendent Mark Thane reaffirming his commitment to keeping students and staff safe in the district in a message he sent out to families tonight. It comes after a special meeting last night where the school board talked about school safety in light of that Florida event. Thane says while they may not be able to train for every scenario, they can learn how to react in the event of a shooting or other act of violence. He also emphasized he wants students to understand that if they see something, they must say something and be proactive.
Preventing episodes of mass violence requires us all to be vigilant. I commit to you that we will continue to work to improve the safety and security of our facilities, to train our staff through the active resistance protocols, and to tend to the social, emotional, and behavioral needs of all of our students.
Thane says he believes the community can make a difference and encourages people to reach out to those who may need support.
Threats made on social media and directed toward Darby School, prompting some parents to pull their kids out of class for the day.
Classes will be in session tomorrow. Investigators determined that whoever posted the threat did so from hundreds of miles away, was not a local person. MTN's Augusta McDonald was in Darby and brings us the story.
Darby High School was emptied today by parents concerned for their students' safety came to get them after more threats on social media were uncovered by students and reported this morning.
Ravalli County Sheriff Steve Holton says the Wednesday morning threats that put Darby's schools on high alert have been traced to a device hundreds of miles away and not in Montana.
School is going to be open tomorrow. We'll have an increased law enforcement presence even from what we had today. By all indications now, I think that the threat is mitigated to the point where it's completely safe to go to school in Darby.
He says investigators from out-of-state agencies are now working to identify the person. About 10:30 a.m. Wednesday, a student brought a threat made toward Darby schools that they discovered on social media to administrators. It was similar to those made by McLean William Kaiser, an 18-year-old senior who was arrested on Monday for threats he made about shooting people at school in recent weeks. The school contacted parents and many came to pick up their students for the day.
It's a really challenging situation to have the responsibility, and we feel that way, the responsibility for the safety of all the kids.
Investigators are working to determine if Kaiser and the unidentified person know each other.
We're just not going to tolerate it. We're going to take social media threats very seriously, and if we have to take a team of investigators and pull them off of every other case they're working and put it on just like we did today, we're going to track down where it originated from, and then we're going to do everything in our power to make sure that criminal charges are pressed on those people.
Augusta McDonald, MTN News, Darby.
The Sheriff's Office is encouraging people to continue reporting any threats they hear or discover on those social media sites.
Meanwhile, Granite County deputies investigating a threat made to Phillipsburg school students. The threats were directed towards a group of students who were made by a juvenile under the age of 18. He's now being charged with 1 count of felony intimidation and 3 counts of misdemeanor assault. While no students were harmed, Granite County Sheriff Scott Dunkerson tells us all the threats are going to be taken seriously.
No, they were not made on social media. They were made directly to some students in the school. Any and all threats directed at any of the schools in our jurisdiction are going to be taken very seriously.
Phillipsburg Public School Superintendent Mike Cutler sent out a statement this evening saying, in part, quote, "At no time did we believe any student or staff member was in danger. We take every situation seriously and will act to notify law enforcement as soon as we become aware of any potential threats." Cutler's full statement is available on our website. The juvenile is being held in a youth facility out of the area, and the investigation into that incident is still ongoing. Well, we'll see more sun than clouds as we make it through the week, with temps warming about that much. For more on what you can expect to see in your area, let's toss it over to Chief Meteorologist Aaron Yost, who has the first forecast. Aaron?
Really like that, just that much. Yeah, we're going to see those temperatures that much warmer tonight, but don't get too excited. It's still going to be below 0 for a lot of folks. We're going to continue with these baby steps here in the temperature department over the next few days with that mix of clouds and sun. Now, tomorrow afternoon, we could see a couple of very isolated light snow showers here and there, most confined to southwest Montana. But this upcoming weekend is when we have a better chance of area-wide, kind of widespread snow showers across the region as a few disturbances track across the northern Rockies. I'm going to have more details on that and that little bit of a warm-up coming up shortly.
5 days of searching and still no clues into the fate of skier Jonathan Jorgensen, who's been missing, but responders aren't giving up hope.
The longtime Flathead Valley physician went missing on Saturday while he was backcountry skiing out of bounds near Big Mountain. Flathead County Sheriff Chuck Curry says searchers ramped up ground efforts and more thoroughly swept through some areas previously that they just searched just to make sure they didn't miss anything. The area searchers are looking in is called the Kona area. It's accessed through the Flower Point Lift on Whitefish Mountain Resort. Tonight we are learning Lewis and Clark County Sheriff's deputies are heading to Whitefish to help in the search. Sheriff Leo Dutton tells MTN that Sheriff Curry has requested his assistance. 3 search and rescue members are responding now. Dutton says more deputies may lend a hand this weekend. Dutton adds that they're doing all they can to support this mission in Flathead County. Curry says they believe that Jorgensen has an avalanche transceiver on and they are attempting to locate a signal, but so far they haven't been successful. And while cold conditions are tough on searchers, Curry says they are prepared.
There's a saying that there's no such thing as bad weather, there's only bad clothing. So it's just a matter of all of our volunteers, all of our searchers are used to being out in extreme conditions, and it's just a matter of having the right number of layers and the right clothes on.
Jorgensen is a longtime practicing physician at North Valley Hospital as well as an experienced backcountry skier. More than 30 people from the Flathead and North Valley search and rescue teams, the Nordic Ski Patrol, and other volunteers are still looking. And Curry says at this point there has been no discussion about terminating that search.
In the Bitterroot tonight, Senator Steve Daines says his bill to remove wilderness study area designation from 5 Montana forest lands is aimed at wildfire safety and resolving a stalemate that's existed for 40 years. But protesters accuse the senator of dodging their objections to his WSA bill during visits in Hamilton and Phillipsburg.
Daines has proposed removing the WSA designation from 5 locations, including the Sapphire and Blue Joint in the Bitterroot. But the plan is running into sharp opposition, with Ravalli County commissioners bearing the brunt of the complaints during a hearing 2 weeks ago. Today, Daines stopped at a Hamilton power sports dealer to discuss the proposal with snowmobilers, ATV riders, and others.
You know, I hope we can find a balance here, that there's plenty of room in Montana to have wilderness areas. We also need to release those areas that are not suitable for wilderness, and that's what this bill they introduced does. It says those areas that have been determined to be not suitable for wilderness by the Forest Service, we should release to full multiple use.
Daines had been scheduled to appear at 1:15 but showed up an hour earlier. That meant protesters with the Montana Wilderness Association and other groups were late and were just starting to gather outside when the senator was wrapping up. They're upset Daines came and went without discussing the bill with them, saying there should be local public meetings to discuss the merits and impacts of the WSA change. Daines believes the issues are clearly laid out, from providing access to thin forest and stop the spread of wildfires to easing regulatory and legal burdens on the Forest Service, which is having to develop forest management plans while making the WSAs completely off limits to some users.
Yeah, they're at the mercy of the Ninth Circuit Court so often, which is not necessarily a good thing for Montana. And this just also allows us to get back into our forest with responsible timber management, to reduce the fuels, those combustibles that are growing on the forest floor. We can do that, reduce the risk of wildfire, and that's part of why we need to release these WSAs.
Opponents worry the bill encompasses 450,000 acres and say if it's approved, it would be the biggest wilderness rollback in Montana history. Veteran Missoula County Commissioner Jean Curtis will be on the campaign stump again this year as she launches her re-election campaign for a fourth term. Curtis was first elected as Missoula County Commissioner in 2000. She's finishing out her third term in office. Today, Curtis formally announced her campaign, saying her 5-point vision for the county includes sustainable business, attainable housing, common sense conservation, and working for the county's most vulnerable residents, including newborns, foster children, and people facing mental health issues. Curtis is already drawing a challenger for the Democratic primary in June, with UM lecturer Josh Slotnick announcing his campaign as a Democrat earlier this winter.
Still ahead, Erin says we're going to see some sun, but it will still be cold. Plus, there's changes on the way, too. Her forecast for the rest of the week is next.
And coming up later, we'll remember the influential life of famed evangelist Pastor Billy Graham. Stay with us here on KPAX.